Ups, let's pause. Vamos a grabar. Y muy bien, excelente. Buenos días, buenos días. Y bienvenidos, bienvenidas, welcome. Okay. My name is, if I had a little sticky name tag, I ran out of them. Me llamo Marilyn, Maryland. Me llamo Marilyn. Okay. Bien. Estamos aquí en la clase de español, Today is kind of a housekeeping day, meaning I'm going to show you the book we are going to use, how to find the sound apps that go with the book, because that's going to be a biggie. ¿Qué más? Other tools on the internet that you will want to check out. Some of those tools, you may say, I love it. Some of those internet tools, you may say, bleh. Not for me. And it really depends on you, because learning language is very individual. Different people learn better different ways. But we have to have some tools, that will be kind of uniform with everybody. The uniform thing is the book. The other apps I'm going to show to you are all free and are all optional. And I would say check them all out and see which ones work best for you. So let's go through some of those tools first, of things that you might want to use, and I'll show them to you on screen. And by the way, if you don't have the book yet, don't worry, you don't need it today, but do order it. And the reason I ordered this was my old book. I'll just explain very briefly. Old book, which I loved, which was great and compact, going out of print. Okay. And they did not support the audio anymore. So even though I had the files, people could not physically get the book anymore. And so that is, problem number one. So this I chose because it's got good general resources. B, it's got some audio files attached to it. That's what I'm going to show you in a moment, how to get that. And it does not cost an arm and a leg. And you can get it on Kindle or hardcover. Okay. Some people like to use only ebooks, and it is available with that option. It is kind of geared towards a high school crowd. That being said, because the title says must know high school, basic Spanish. That being said, it is not strictly a teenager kind of book that I can see at this point. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to find the apps. And I am going to tell you that the apps have all the audio links. So there'll be little icons. I think they're in blue. Son azules. Sí, son azules. They're going to be little blue. I mean, it's obvious. They're audio links. A little icon that looks like a speakerphone. Okay. And every time you see that in the book, that means there is audio so that you can hear people speaking those words, because it really helps for us to hear those words being said. And you'll need to hear things being said multiple times. So I'm going to show you where to find the apps. Because this is geared towards a high school crowd originally, as the book was conceived, I think this is why this happened. If you try to download this onto a laptop, it might not work, because I've had difficulty with the laptop. However, it downloads just great to a tablet and to a phone. And because this is geared towards a high school crowd in its original inception as a textbook, kids are on their phones and that's it. Okay. So you can download it on the Apple Store for apps for Apple and for Google Play. But there's one thing you ought to know is that must know. If you type in Google Store, for example, must know Spanish, if you actually put the important thing Spanish in there, it won't go to this. Go figure. What you need to type in to get the audio is just must know. Why? And I believe in the book, they don't really tell you that. So I'm telling you that because I'm the one who's got to play with this stuff and figure out what's going to work for my people. I get people who are great with computer stuff. I got people who like use computer to do Facebook and nothing else and feel completely paralyzed using anything with technology. So I got to prepare for all scenarios. But if you type in just must know, that is the way you're going to find this. And it'll have the kind of Superman looking logo thing on it. Yeah, like that. And then when you download it to your phone or your tablet, because, let me know later, especially if you're on an Apple product, maybe it will download to your laptop. When you download it, it's going to give you a whole menu of things like this. It's going to give you like everything. And you're going to say, well, I don't need all this stuff. No, you don't need all this stuff. You're going to scroll through all the subjects, algebra and biology and all this, and just look for the Spanish. And then you'll see, and it's listed by chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So it'll be pretty obvious. If you have a problem with it, do email me. Always, anytime you have a question about the tools or anything we do in class or any questions you want me to address, any stuff you're using that doesn't quite work, always feel free to email me. That's cool and just fine. Okay, vale, okay, bien. That's tool number 1. I want to show you tool number 2, which many of you have probably heard about. And this is tool number 2. Tool number 2 is Duolingo. Oh, yes. It is freebie. I would not pay. I mean, if you want to. Duolingo is good for learning a lot of vocabulary fast. Duolingo is good for... You can hear people giving you, again, the audio, the spoken word. Duolingo is good for, you can see in real time immediately, did I get something right or wrong? Duolingo on like recognizing your speaking, sometimes pretty good, sometimes not so accurate. I don't know if that has to do with the quality of one's microphone or if it's just an AI thing that it doesn't recognize. So I would say Duolingo's ability to, when you speak to it, to recognize that you got the spoken pronunciation correct is sometimes spot on and sometimes iffy. Just saying. Duolingo is not good at explaining to you why you got something wrong. It'll tell you you're wrong, ding, 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 but it won't really tell you why so much. Duolingo also, I want to show you, is very, very good with giving. It has little podcasts, which may not help you right now as a beginner because podcasts tend to be a little bit longer. But it does little stories. So as you get further on, it's those podcasts provided through Duolingo are actually quite helpful. So it is a tool that has you. It's also one other really big benefit of Duolingo is that you can also do as much or as little as you want to per day. So you want to do 5 minutes? You want to do 40 minutes? Anything in between, okay, so any duration. So if you've only got 5 minutes, and we have days like that. Our schedules are crammed. That's great. So Duolingo has its pluses, it has its minuses. Para que sepan, so you know. One site I really, really, really super recommend then is this one. Here is the last tool I'm going to tell you about. The last tool, golly, Eckies, let me get that out, is called, I know it says donate here, but it's called Language Transfer. It actually isn't, I don't have the original sign up. This is the audio section. Language Transfer, and I'll send you the link. After class, every class, I send a great big long email, and it'll have the links for every video, every audio, every file that I use for you goes out in my email. And the link that for this will be in my email after class is done. Language Transfer is done by a Brit, because you can tell when they're speaking. They're from the UK. However, it is a podcast. I really, really highly recommend Language Transfer. If you are a highly visual learner, if you are the kind of person that your learning style is, you must see it written down. And by God, you just can't deal with it, then Language Transfer might be tough for you. Okay, so the pluses and minuses. The pluses is that it starts to develop for you very quickly on, nothing to do with writing, but everything to do with listening comprehension and your ability to pick up vocabulary and to link words together into a short sentence. Okay, it takes what you know in English and says, here is a language pattern that you have grown up with. And here's how you can plug that in to learn words and learn the word order in Spanish. It is very, very good at that, but you will see nothing written out. So if you're a highly visual person, and you must have that, then this is still beneficial, I believe, super beneficial, but it may cause some frustration. I would suggest with Language Transfer, and it has like a slew of languages within it, so you have to look for the Spanish link to it, but I'll send that again to you. The beauty of it is that you'll hear the instructor speaking, and you'll hear a student responding to the pattern. And that's kind of your cue to try it that way. And I want to play a little bit of how that sounds. Ooh, and I might need to switch my screen to do that for you so that you can kind of get a feel for it. The reason this is so powerful is that, again, it takes what you already have learned all your life, that it's embedded in your brain, and that is English. And it starts to give you a framework where you can plug, learn vocabulary kind of quickly and naturally. But I want to give you a flavor, and I'm going to look at track 2, because track 1 he explains his method in track 1. So track 1 is not bad for you to listen to, but track 2 helps.
Related languages. English is considered a Germanic language, but it's kind of half Latin. We have a
English is
huge
half
amount
Latin.
of Latin vocabulary in English. And this Latin vocabulary, we can convert it over to Spanish really easily, because Spanish is practically modern Latin. Whoever said Latin is a dead language lied. Just in the same way that Greek is a modern version of ancient Greek, Spanish is like a modern version of Latin. It's actually a street Latin that became Spanish. So we can identify Latin words in English, and we can, with just some rule or other, convert them over to Spanish, and this will give us around 3,000 words.
So he explains in this track number 2, which if you really want to dive into the cut to the chase, that's where you should start, is track 2. Because English uses so many words that come from Latin originally. And yep, same with Spanish. There will be many words, which we formally call cognates, that you'll be able to guess what the words are or get from the English word into what the Spanish word is very, very quickly. And I'm going to play just a little bit more so you can hear what his method is.
Count them, but they are around 3,000 words. So, for example, one of these rules is that words ending in AL tend to come from Latin, so we can make them Spanish. So to give you an example, normal in Spanish is normal.
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 And now that second female voice you heard is a student who, by the way, does not know any Spanish. She is learning first time. So it is a purely sound experience, listening and speaking experience.
Good. What do you notice different between normal and normal?
Well, the accent.
What do you mean by the accent?
Where the sound is stressed.
Good.
Which vowel it's stressed.
Where's it stressed in English?
On the O.
Good. At the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Normal, normal. And in Spanish, we're stressing the end, right?
Yeah.
Normal, normal.
Yeah. Normal.
So I want you to notice how he coaches her through that. He coaches her to think about how is it like the English and how is it different from the English? Normal versus normal. And how does that normal sound different from normal? And then...
So if we assume the same happens with other words, how do you think you would say metal?
Metal.
Metal.
Metal. So he's going to take you through that pattern. And then he moves from there to how to say it's normal. Es normal. Okay, so it's a really, really excellent tool. I highly, highly recommend that you check out Language Transfer. And each episode in that podcast, and, listen to it while you're walking the dog, cleaning up the kitty litter, cleaning, doing the disagreeable things or the relaxing things that we do through the day. And you can listen as a podcast. But again, you won't have anything written. Okay, bien. ¿Todo bien? ¿All good? ¿Sí? Bien. Ok. Bueno, vamos a empezar con maneras de decir hola y buenos días. We're gonna start with greetings. Greetings, greetings, greetings. The way we greet people. Greetings are a very normal first step to use. And it is really super important to get greetings right so that you create a good impression, so that you peg yourself as I am a friendly, open person. And yes, you want to talk to me. Okay. First impressions are always a big deal. Don't feel you've got to take any notes during class because everything you see on the screen, you'll get the link for it when I send the email after class is done. So we're going to check out, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Cómo se dice? ¿Cómo se dice en español? ¿Cómo se dice is how do you say? Technically, ¿cómo se dice means how does one say? We in American English don't very often say, how does one say? How does one say? Book? No, we say, how do you say? That's how we phrase it. But en español, ¿cómo se dice? How does one say? How do you say? En español. Español, we're going to go through greetings, saludos y despedidos, ways to say hi, ways to say bye. Okay. First impressions matter. And they teach you in French, if you're learning French, that if you do not walk into a store and immediately say bonjour, bonjour, if you do not immediately walk in and say that, they will think you are a knuckle dragging kind of a jerk. What an impolite person. Well, we don't want to create that kind of impression in Spanish either. So in Spanish, it's always important to greet people because it pegs you as somebody that they'll want to talk to and they'll want to address. Es fácil. It's easy. Okay. Entonces, sí. Hola. Hola, the word for hi. Hola. Hola. Repitan,
Hola.
por favor. Hola.
Hola.
Hola. Hola. In English, hello. We do it. One thing I want you to, I'm going to point out, and we'll point this out when we talk about the sound system. That letter H, it's spelled out, but the H, unless it's CH, which is different, and we'll talk about that in a bit. H by itself is a silent letter, like all the time. So even though it's spelled there, it is pronounced as O-L-A. Hola. 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 Hola.
Hola.
Hola. Hola is easy to say. It is appropriate to use for anybody. We'll talk later about why things may or may not be appropriate. Hola can be used any time of the day, always. Okay. Next, we've got the ways to say good morning. Buenos dias. And a lot of these you may know. Some of them you may kind of know, but, not exactly got it pegged. Buenos dias. And I've got the O like bigger because, in bold. That is important. Es importante. Es importante. Buenos. Buenos. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Okay. Voy a demostrar. I'm going to demonstrate. Buenos días. Buenos días, buenos días. Sí, a las 7 de la mañana, 7 in the morning. Buenos días. Okay. Uy. A las 6 de la mañana, 6 in the morning. Buenos días, right? You walk into a store. If it's any time from 6 a.m., are they going to be open before that? Probably not. They won't be open at 6 a.m. until noon. Okay. Buenos días. Okay. I want everybody to just try buenos.
Buenos.
Buenos. And getting that O in the buenos is good. Buenos días.
Días.
Días. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Buenos días. At noon. At noon, that changes. Okay. Once you hit noon, we no longer use buenos dias. We use, and notice it changes from buenos to buenas. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. And you'll notice tardes looks kind of like an English word, kind of. Tardes sounds kind of like tardy. Tardy. Late. Yeah, because tarde means later. Tardes means afternoon. Buenas tardes. So from noon.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Buenas.
Buenas
tardes.
tardes.
Bien. Buenas tardes. We use buenas. Sí. Otra vez. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Bien. Perfecto. Okay. Vale. We use buenas tardes from noon until the sun sets. So 5 p.m., it's still buenas tardes. 6 p.m., it's still, unless you're in the dead of winter, buenas tardes. 7 p.m., depending on if the sun is still up, it's still buenas tardes. Okay? You only start to hear the next phrase maybe at 7, maybe at 7:30, maybe even as late as 8 o'clock. Depende. It depends. Depende. It depends. Depends on when the sun goes down. It is sun dependent. Buenas noches is used to say good evening or good night. Okay. Buenas noches is used for both of those phrases. Buenas noches. Again, it's not buenos, it's buenas. Buenas noches. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches is used from the sun having set all evening, all through nighttime. Okay. All of these can be used speaking to any person, but these 3 at the bottom, aside from hola, are time dependent. Okay, but they're good greetings. So when you walk into an office, a post office, a train station, the airport, any kind of store whatsoever, it's important to always start with a greeting. Okay. If you cut straight to the chase and just say, where do I buy stamps? That will not go over well. All right. Being polite and being an accessible person is important culturally to people in most Spanish-speaking countries. So starting with a greeting, sí, es importante, whether it's as simple as hola, any time of day, or the time-dependent greetings. Buenos días. Buenas tardes. Sí. Buenas noches. Okay. Vale. Bien. Okay. You are going to get, I will send this. I will send this to you later in the email. And I do want you to listen to it at some point of the week because you may not have your book absolutely, for a few days. And this will cover a lot of important things for like follow-up work throughout the week. Como saludar in español means how to greet. We have an English word like saludar. That thing of English has a lot of Latin. Our highfalutin, fancy schmancy words in English really come from Latin. So saludar is like salute. Salute. A soldier who salutes is greeting his superiors, his colleagues. Yeah. A salute comes from that word saludar, same root, saludar, how to greet in Spanish. So think of saludar as greeting, as saluting. Okay, bien. Vale, you will get that link, but let's move on to other greetings because there are other things involved with greetings. Here, one little detail is going to raise its ugly head, and that well, I shouldn't say ugly, difficult for those of us who learn English. There are this many ways to say you. So when you say, how are you? It matters who you're talking to. Okay. So some forms of you in Spanish are formal. Some forms of you in Spanish are familiar, informal. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. When you are traveling as a tourist and speaking to people in Mexico, in Latin America, in Spain, wherever it is you're traveling where they speak Spanish, it is important as when you walk into a store setting, to speak with the polite you as the initial experience, okay? The initial encounter. Your initial speaking, when you don't know somebody from Adam, is going to be with what they call the formal you, which is usted. But so some of these greetings are going to be based on that. Ways to say, how are you? Here, the top two we're going to take a look at now. Here's the word for how. Como. Como. How. Como. Como. If you want to ask, how are you? Because in being a polite greeting, buenos dias. Oh, a shop owner, okay, may, or somebody behind an airline counter may ask, well, how are you after greeting you? How are you? And which we do, if we're nice people, even with the people in the checkout lane at the store often. So the formal how are you is ¿Cómo está usted? I want you to try those three words with me to make this question. ¿Cómo?
¿Cómo
está?
está?
And you'll notice that A has an accent mark. Whenever you see a little accent mark in my files, it means you punch that sound a little bit harder than the other syllables. So, ¿cómo está?
¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo está? And they may or may not use the word usted. Try that last word, usted.
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 And that D at the end is going to sound more like a TH. But if you
Usted.
forget and pronounce it like an English D, it's not a huge big deal. Okay. ¿Cómo está usted? ¿Cómo está usted?
¿Cómo está usted?
¿Cómo está usted?
¿Cómo está usted?
Perfecto. And you'll notice with a question, we rise at the end of the question, which we often do in English. ¿Cómo está usted? That's when you don't know anybody from Adam and you want to ask, how are you? Just to be polite. Okay. All right. If you are speaking to somebody that you know on a first name basis, or I'm going to be very ageist here. If you are, I want to say 30 or younger, 25 or younger, young people talking to each other, even if they don't know you from Adam, young people talking to each other do not use the formal you. They don't. They use the familiar you. The familiar you is not usted, but tú. And here is the how are you if you're greeting somebody informally on an equal footing. You know them by their first name, or they're a member of your family, or they're somebody the same age as you. You're a young person. Okay. Here, and you'll notice the como is still como. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás?
Está.
The
¿Cómo
only difference
está?
between ¿Cómo está usted and ¿Cómo estás is that this word está for the informal gets an S sound, an S sound at the end. But that's important, okay? ¿Cómo estás means you're talking to somebody on a familiar, chummy level, okay? People, kids, teenagers, people in their 20s always speak on that familiar level, okay? So what I'm saying to you is if you're 25, 28, maybe even, and you're talking to somebody kind of your same age at a park or even in a store, it will be very normal to them to go straight into that familiar. But if you're an adult speaking to another adult and you don't know that person by their first name, it might be considered a little bit rude to use ¿Cómo estás? The ¿Cómo está usted? Is the formal
¿Cómo
you.
está usted?
¿Cómo está usted? Okay. Bien.
Bien.
Vale. Okay. That is one way to say, how are you? Here's another way to greet people, however, to say, how are you? And notice, in English, we don't just say, how are you? We use different phrases and they will too. So another way people may ask that same idea, but using a different phrase is, ¿Cómo le va? ¿Cómo le va?
¿Cómo le va?
That's the formal. ¿Cómo le va? The le is underlined because that tells you it's formal.
¿Cómo
Okay.
le va?
Okay. If in doubt, always use the formal. Okay. If in doubt, use the formal because it makes you sound polite. And again, when you're polite, people want to help you, right? The familiar, how are things going for you is really what that means. The familiar way to phrase that is we just change one word in there. Instead of le, we put in the word te. ¿Cómo te va?
¿Cómo te va?
¿Cómo te va?
¿Cómo te va?
¿Cómo te va is just more like kind of saying, how's it hanging? How's it going? All right. These are maybe slightly less formal than ¿Cómo está usted? But they're always appropriate. Super appropriate. This next one down the list is another one of way of asking, how are you? It is less formal, but it is appropriate to use anytime. It doesn't matter if you're talking to somebody with a formal you, to a people of you in the group, to a familiar you, doesn't matter. Everybody uses this one, ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal?
You can't really translate that word for word. It's just a less formal way for saying, how's it going? ¿Qué tal? Right?
¿Qué tal?
This very last one, I would only use with people if I am 25 and I'm talking, if you're 20 something, maybe even 30, and you're talking with other people, this bottom one is great. If you're a 40-year-old or older, this sounds like super, super, super slangy. So maybe not. Definitely not in a store if you're an older person as a way to say, how are you going? But this is like super slang that young people use with each other. ¿Qué onda?
¿Qué onda?
¿Qué onda?
¿Qué onda?
¿Qué onda literally means what wave? Yeah. But, if you walked up to somebody and say, how's it chinking? How's it hanging? That doesn't make sense either, does it? So, yeah. Sometimes things won't make sense. I'm just warning you. It's just the way it is. ¿Qué onda? Don't use when you walk into a store. No, 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 no. Anything above it, great. But if you're a younger person addressing people your age, ¿qué onda? Is a super normal way for them to say, hey, how's it going? Yeah. ¿Qué onda? All right. But the other ones are super normal. ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo le va?
¿Cómo le va?
If you're talking to somebody your age or somebody you know by their first name, ¿cómo te va?
¿Cómo te va?
And the very, very standard, ¿cómo está usted?
¿Cómo está usted?
¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás? Do be forewarned with this, ¿cómo está usted? You may not even hear that word usted. People may drop it
¿Cómo está?
because in Spanish they can. Subject pronouns in Spanish are frequently dropped because the verb tells the whole story in Spanish. So whereas like in English, I'm going to tell you, I am here. I have to say that in English as I am, there's the verb here. In Spanish, the am is the only word you're going to hear. You won't hear I. You'll just hear the I am word. Okay. Each verb has a specific form depending on who is doing that action. So people will often drop that word usted. Okay. Because the verb they use with it, está. That's all you really need to say to have, a Spanish sentence that makes sense. Okay. So those are more greetings, ways to say, how are you doing? How are you doing? Okay. Who your audience is makes a difference. Okay. The person you're talking to matters. Otherwise you sound rude or just gringo. If you would call a person that you're talking to by their first name, if they're a little kid, if they're a friend, somebody you've had many interactions with, or a family member, tú is the way that you say you. Tú is the familiar you, tú. And the verb will follow a form that links only to that word tú. Okay? We'll get into that a little bit later. If you only would address somebody as you by using their last name, like an older person, a boss, a teacher, not me, please, because, you're not little kids, or a worker in a store, like some guy who's just wearing the name tag, he's checking out your order in a store or he's helping you get something off of the shelf. Okay. The formal you is usted.
Usted.
And that's what is called the formal you, usted. And it's abbreviated as UD. That doesn't mean we pronounce it ood. Just like you don't pronounce Mr. in English. MR isn't mer. Mer Smith. No, Mr. Smith. Okay. UD is just an abbreviation that is frequently used for usted, but you should know that the full word for UD period is usted. Okay. That's just, UD is just an abbreviation. Usted. Okay. Usted, the formal you. Okay. Tú,
Instead.
yeah.
Tú.
Tú, the familiar you. The familiar you, the friendly you. That may sound, you in English used to have formals and familiars, and that disappeared over many, many hundreds of years. In other languages, that never disappeared. Now, don't get all verklumped and tied up in a knot over that. Just think about it. Is the person your same age if you're younger, like teenagers, kids talking together? Are they a friendly? Do you call them by their first name? If you call that person by their first name, tú will be the friendly you. If you cannot call that person by their first name because you don't know it, right? Use usted. And if you're in
Usted.
doubt, if you're in doubt, go with the formal usted, because at least you sound polite. Yeah, polite. Okay, so I will tell you, a 20-year-old person like helping Granny across the street would never talk to her using tú, because it would be considered rude. That's just kind of the way it goes. Okay, now, here's something else that you should know about. If you're talking to somebody saying you, but it's more than one you, the you might be plural. Okay. And in English, we just have you. That's it. We don't have friendly you, formal you. We do have you guys. Sometimes we say in English, you guys, or you all, or if you live in a certain part of the United States, y'all, right? But really, technically in English, we don't have a plural you. But in Spanish, they do have a plural you, and you only need to know one of them. So I told you there were 4 ways to say you, but you only need to know 3 of those. But I'm going to show you what the other one is, just so you know. If you're talking to more than one person saying you, it will be take that word usted, and it makes it a plural. It becomes ustedes.
Ustedes.
We take usted and we add es to the end, and that makes it more than one. Ustedes.
Ustedes.
Ustedes is sometimes abbreviated to like UDS instead of UD period, UDS period, but the whole word written out is ustedes.
Ustedes.
Ustedes. Okay.
Ustedes.
So just so you know, there is a plural you, and it is ustedes. Technically, there is a familiar, I should write that as less formal. I should rewrite that. I should say there is a familiar you guys, and that word is vosotros. You will see that referenced in many, many books and many videos. Vosotros, as ustedes is the plural for usted, to say you guys. Vosotros is the plural for tú. Okay. However, vosotros, to say you guys, is only used in Spain. Nobody uses it in Mexico, Central America, or South America, Sudamerica, Mexico, America Central. No, nobody on this side of the Atlantic, nobody uses vosotros. Okay, so if you're in Spain, it's important to know vosotros, but we will largely reference it in passing, but not use it a lot, because it's only widely used in Spain, and it's used a lot there, but not here. They don't bother with it in Latin America. Okay, let's go over some other polite phrases. Some of these you may know, some of them you may not. But the ones at the bottom are actually kind of important, and those you may not. Okay. Our please and thank you words are always important. Okay. Please, por favor, por favor.
Por favor.
Por favor.
Por favor.
Por favor. Favor looks like favor. That's what it means, for a favor. Por favor, please. Okay, that's their way of saying please. It's 2 words, por favor. You may hear people shorten it to this little word here, porfa. Porfa is kind of slangy, but a lot of people will use it, especially the younger crowd, people under 30. Porfa is a shortened way of saying por favor. Okay?
Por
Bien,
favor.
porfa. But por favor. Por favor. And notice, as we heard way back at the start of class, that changing normal into normal, we change favor into favor. And we punch the or at the end more. Favor. Por favor.
Por
Okay.
favor.
And the way to say thanks, you should always know. Gracias.
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 Gracias. Importante. Gracias. Okay. Thanks. There are different ways to say you're welcome. Here's probably the most common, and I'll kind of show you the other two. The other 2 you may hear as well, but de nada. The response to gracias is de nada. De nada. You're welcome.
De nada.
Okay. De nada technically means of nothing or from nothing, but it's just a response to gracias. De nada. De nada. You're welcome. Like in English, you might say, oh, it was nothing. Yeah. So think of it that way. De nada. De nada. You're welcome. You may, however, hear people using different expressions instead of de nada. These next 2 over a la derecha, to the right of it, are other things that mean the same thing as de nada, but people may use as a substitute for de nada. And that is por nada. Por nada.
Por nada.
Or this
Nada.
one, and that's a bunch of words. No hay de qué.
No hay de qué.
No hay de qué.
No hay de qué.
No hay de qué is not really translatable. It is a way people say you're welcome. It is, I would say, maybe a little more formal than de nada.
No hay
You're more likely to hear de nada.
nada.
Okay. Here are the next 2 phrases. These are gold, 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 gold star. Ooh, gold star. The starred phrases mean they're super important. It's always important to use polite phrases in stores, airports, train stations, subway stations, wherever it is you have interactions with people. You are always going to get more bang for your buck for that personal interaction if you use courtesy, polite phrases. So, por favor is super importante. Liberally sprinkle the por favor in. And this next starred one, these ones towards the bottom, liberally sprinkle these in. When you approach somebody to ask for help, to ask for directions, to ask any question whatsoever, whether it's somebody that, in a store, in a transportation center, Joe Schmo on the street that you got to ask directions, always, always, always start with this word, disculpe. Disculpe.
Disculpe.
Disculpe.
Disculpe.
And disculpe. Disculpe is a verb form. Disculpe means forgive me, excuse me.
Disculpe.
Yeah. When you need to get someone's attention. So before you ask any question, ask for help, ask for information. Always start with this word disculpe. If you do that, it's like this is the Spanish equivalent of, if you've ever taken French, excusez-moi. It is this signals you as a polite person. You were saying, I'd like to get your attention, please. And disculpe. And this is what you're probably going to use because you're going to be in a store setting. If you're a young person, again, under 30, and you're talking with another person in their 30s, you'll just turn that E at the end of disculpe into an A at the end. Disculpa. Okay. So if you're talking 20 somethings to each other, then disculpa is okay. Right. So when you're signaling to get somebody's attention, start with this. Okay. These phrases are starred because they are gold. And when that comes out of your mouth, disculpe or disculpa, you are automatically showing somebody respect, courtesy, and you are making it more likely that they will want to help you. Okay. Those phrases mean excuse me, to get somebody's attention. There are other ways of saying excuse me. If, for example, you have to walk in front of them because you're in a crowded space, if you bumped them on the subway by mistake, you stepped on somebody's toes by mistake, that now this is not the excuse me if I'm trying to get, but this is nice because we got an English word that's kind of like that. It's like saying, pardon me, perdon. Perdon.
Perdon.
Perdon. And
Perdon.
notice that with perdon, again, you're punching that at the end more than the other syllable. Perdon.
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 Perdon is also, excuse me, literally means pardon. And because it sounds so much like pardon, yeah, it's easy for us to remember that word. Perdon. Okay.
Perdon.
Can you use perdon instead of disculpe? You can.
Disculpe.
You can, but perdon is kind of more appropriate. Like I did a minor oops mistake. I bumped into you. Yeah. So disculpe is a better word to use to get someone's attention. Okay. To say, excuse me, because there are a lot of ways to say, excuse me. This is the other, excuse me. You are not likely to need it. You are usually, this is something you use, like, for example, when you got to leave a meeting early, you know, you have to get up in the middle of a meeting or a presentation to use the restroom, something like that. It means this 2-word phrase, we're just going to look at con permiso.
Con
Con
permiso.
permiso. Con permiso just means I'm getting up to leave for a short while and I'm probably going to be back. Con permiso. Yeah, that's an
Con
excuse me
permiso.
when you're leaving a group of people. Okay, so these are the more important excuse me words you need to be able to use. Disculpe,
Disculpe.
right? And the disculpa is just the informal, but you're more likely to use disculpe or perdón.
Perdon.
Perdón. Okay.
Perdon.
Vale,
Disculpe.
bien. Okay. If you are actually leaving, time to go stuff, you've got many different ways that people may say goodbye. And by the way, para que sepan, just so you guys know, especially in Mexico, nobody ever says goodbye and then just hangs up or says goodbye and then just walks away. People will usually say goodbye like at least 3 different times using 3 different phrases. So, okay. Because nobody wants to feel rushed. Okay, so polite saying goodbye. The one that everybody knows, especially living here, adios.
Adios.
Yeah, no surprise here. Adios. Dios, by the way, without the a, is God. Yeah, go with God, go with God. Yeah, kind of like that thing. May you go with God. Yeah. Here is a less formal, but this is very super frequently used. Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos. Nos vemos literally means we will see each other, and it's see you later. Okay. Adios to some people sounds kind of final. Like if you think you're going to actually see that person later, like somebody who's in a tour with you and you're going to be seeing them again, you know, you're taking a lunch break, you're going to see them again. Nos vemos is more appropriate. Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Yeah, nos vemos, nos vemos. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
See you later. Hasta, that part means until. Hasta mañana, if you're going to see that person tomorrow. Hasta mañana.
Hasta mañana.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Oh, I'm going to include actually an extra one here because this is super used a lot. Cuídese, or the familiar form, cuídate, is kind of their version of take care. Cuídese, cuídate. Okay.
Cuídese.
So, yeah, cuídese, cuídate. Bien. Okay. Vale. Bien.
Bien.
Okay. And I'll send you that whole set of slides. I want you to check that out. I want you to listen to the little audio, the video you're going to have on ways to greet people. And then there's going to be another one on how to introduce yourself. And bien. Okay. Una pregunta? Question? Sí or no? We're going to talk about how to introduce yourself next. And I want you to practice some of these with me. Okay. We're going to take a real quick look at these. Aquí estamos. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, ways to say what's his name, what's her name, what's your name, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Remember how you have that phrase, ¿Cómo estás? How are you? That how word is important. Here's that how word, ¿Cómo? 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 Okay. All right. How to talk about or introduce people other than yourself or yourself. Let's look at how to introduce yourself first. The way you introduce yourself is this. There are three ways. Uno, dos, tres. Uno, dos, tres. Okay. Uno, me llamo.
Me llamo.
Me llamo.
Me llamo.
Me llamo. Me llamo. Me llamo es I call myself. I call myself. Who in English ever says I call myself? Exactly. All right. So it's important for you to know that it does mean literally I call myself. But this is a common way for people to say my name is me llamo, me llamo. And I want you to notice something, and we'll talk about this. I hope I will try to fit this in today. Bye. I had a blip. There we go. Okay. It does not gonna, okay. I got to highlight it this way. That me llamo. You'll notice it's not me lamo. It's not lamo or lama. It's ya. It's like a little tiny J with mostly a Y. Me llamo. Me llamo. Me llamo. Okay. Me llamo. My name is me llamo. Okay. I'm going to ask the name. ¿Cómo te llamas? I'm going to ask Mary. ¿Cómo te llamas? How would you respond? ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? ¿Cómo te llamas?
Let me unmute. Me llamo Maria.
Maria, or Mary. Yeah, it's okay to use your English name. Yeah. Okay. Bueno. ¿Cómo te llamas? Sima, I'm looking at you. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llama Sima.
Bien. Perfecto. Okay. Eric, I'll need you to take yourself off of mute, please. Por favor. ¿Sí? ¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Eric.
Perfecto. Bueno, Jay, ¿cómo te llamas? Oh, and you'll need to take yourself off of mute. Perdón.
Me llamo Jay.
Exacto, me llamo Jay. Okay, Bunny, ¿cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Bunny.
Me llamo Bunny. Bueno, sí. Dorothy, ¿cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Dorothy.
Bien, sí, Dorotea. There is a word with that, Dorotea, but you can use Dorothy, ¿sí? ¿Y cómo te llamas, Carla? And Carla, and maybe if you're on mute, Carla, just, bien. Oh, you're back on mute, Carla. Now you're off mute. Great. ¿Cómo te llamas, Carla? Kind of begs the question.
Me llamo Carla.
Perfecto. Okay. Me llamo. Okay. Fantástico. Número uno, me llamo, and your name. You can use your first and last name, your first name, whatever it is, whatever is appropriate for that situation. Let's take a look at número dos. Mi nombre es. There's a literal thing. Mi nombre es. Mi means my. Mi nombre es. Mi nombre es. My name is. Es. That little word es, E-S, means is. When you're talking about one thing, my name is, mi nombre es, and the same thing, okay? Mi nombre es, and that is very literal. That is also appropriate to say my name is. That is something that in terms of word patterns is more similar to our English. Me llamo is not similar to our English pattern, but it is frequently used, okay? Mi nombre es is closer to the word order we would use in English. Mi nombre es Marilyn. Mi nombre es Marilyn. So, me llamo Marilyn, same thing as saying mi nombre es Marilyn. But you have to use more words to say mi nombre es, okay? You need to use more words, okay? Número tres, we're going to show you way number 3. Instead of me llamo Marilyn, instead of mi nombre es Marilyn, we can just say soy, and I should make that with a capital S. Uy, S. Uy, a ver. Aquí, bien, mejor, better. Soy. Remember how I told you that we don't need to say the word I? Okay. Soy. And that looks like soy sauce. And it's pronounced the same way as soy sauce. Soy. Soy means I am. Soy. Okay. Soy Marilyn. I can introduce myself saying, me llamo Marilyn. Mi nombre es Marilyn. Soy Marilyn. All of those are appropriate. Okay? The soy just means I am. I am. And they don't say the I word. The I word, the equivalent to I, would be yo. But they probably won't bother to say that word yo. They might, but they probably won't. They'll just say soy. Soy Marilyn. So those 3 things are appropriate. Okay? Bien? Okay, I want to show you very, very briefly, however. Here are questions people will ask when they want to know your name. And, especially if you're a place like an airport or a hotel where they might have to look at a reservation, you may get this question. And, the question you'll get will be, ¿Cómo se llama usted? If they're being polite, like at a hotel, and they're looking up your reservation. ¿Cómo se llama usted? And they might drop the usted. ¿Cómo se llama usted? Right? If you're in the 30 or younger crowd and, you're talking to people your same age, you may hear it as, ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? What's your name? ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? But formal, ¿Cómo se llama usted? Okay. If you want to ask not what's your name, but what's his name? What's her name? What are their names? So in other words, if you're not addressing somebody on a you basis, but if you're asking about somebody else, notice that phrase, se llama, in the usted question stays the same to talk about a onesie, a single person. ¿Cómo se llama usted? That se llama part stays the same to say, what's her name? ¿Cómo se llama ella? ella means she. ¿Cómo se llama ella? Or what's his name? You're still talking about one person. ¿Cómo se llama él? Él means he. ¿Cómo se llama él? ¿Cómo se llama ella? Whenever you ask for one person's name, the se llama stays the same, right? And plugging in right at the end, the she idea, ella, the he idea, él, or the usted idea, you. Okay? Bien? Vale. Okay. I'm going to show you what these patterns are like when we talk about naming people. My name is, your name is, his name is. They get slightly different forms, all right? The phrase, me llamo, I'm talking about myself. Me llamo. Me llamo Marilyn. Put your name in. You might want to put your last name in. Me llamo Señora Bittner. Okay. Te llamas means somebody's talking to you. They're addressing you in a familiar way. Te llamas. ¿Cómo te llamas means they're asking you, how are you called? ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? Okay. But if we're only talking not to somebody, well, it might be to somebody if you use usted, but if we're talking about one person, él, he, a male person, or ella, she, a female person, it'll be se llama. Se llama. Okay. And if we're talking about more than one person, what are their names? Like you're at the hotel and you got like 2 kids in tow and a spouse in tow. Somebody might ask, ¿Cómo se llaman? ¿Cómo se llaman? What are their names? ¿Cómo se llaman? And notice the only difference between se llama, talking about one person, and se llaman, talking about more than one person, is that little word, that little letter, perdon, that little letter, n at the end means more than one person, right? So notice all these things here, llamo, llamas, llama, llaman, they're similar, but there's like a little difference at the end. Yeah, these are all verb forms. This will happen with all verbs in Spanish. Okay. And you don't need to know them all now, but, kind of get comfortable with the idea that these words will, the body of the word, of the verb will stay the same. Yeah. Jam, jam, jam. But the way they end, the little ending at the end will morph and change a little bit. Okay, and that tells you that who they're talking about is going to be a specific group of people. Nos llamamos would mean our names are. Nos llamamos. You're probably not going to use that one as much, but these you may use quite a lot and hear quite a lot. Okay, so let's just see like ways that these are used, and then we're going to move on to some pronunciation issues. Let's talk about not what's your name, ¿cómo te llamas, or ¿cómo se llama usted? But let's talk about talking about other people. For example, I might say, se llama Hugh Jackman. Se llama Hugh Jackman. I'm talking about him. He's obviously not here. I'm talking about him. Se llama Hugh Jackman. Or I might identify him by saying, es Hugh. He's Hugh. Es Hugh. Or I might say, su nombre es Hugh. Su nombre es Hugh Jackman. Okay. If I'm talking about somebody, it becomes one of these alternatives. Se llama, and their name, Hugh Jackman. Es Hugh Jackman, see? Su nombre es Hugh Jackman. Okay. Oh, por ejemplo, Or, for example, if you're a fan of the Marvel world of movies, trying to get this to move down. If I'm talking about this guy, I might say, se llama Tom Hiddleston. Se llama Tom Hiddleston. His name is Tom Hiddleston. Or I can use number 2 alternative. Es Tom Hiddleston. Es Tom Hiddleston. It's Tom Hiddleston. He is Tom Hiddleston. Or I can use that número 3, alternative number 3. Su nombre es. Su nombre es. His name is. Su nombre es Tom. Su nombre es Tom Hiddleston. Bien? So these are just different ways to identify people. Okay. Bien? Good? See? Okay. Vale. Okay. I want to get into one extra thing, and that thing is a little bit about pronunciation. And I'll send you this file because it's not very big. Unlike French, unlike English, English is a nightmare. Spanish is a hugely phonetic language. So I do want to spend a little bit of time with you on el alfabeto. Normally, I don't spend, with little kids, I spend time on the whole alphabet, which really isn't necessary. What's necessary for you to know is that when you read a word, once you get, this book, when you read a word, pretty much what you see spelled out is what you pronounce. Spanish is a very phonetic language, and we won't get to all of this today. I am going to send you a rather long video to listen to about the sounds that various letters make. And we'll practice a few of these today, the most crucial ones today. But just know that in Spanish, pretty much what you see is what you say. There are very, very, very few silent letters. Okay. So in some cases, it's in most cases, most letters only make one sound. It's very unlike English. We're going to take a look at this. Vocales means vowels. Here, son las letras más importantes. These are the most important letters you will ever learn to pronounce things correctly. So we're going to spend time on this today. And we're going to use some, I'm going to send you some things that will help you practice this. We'll practice some of these together. But the vowels only make one sound each. And that's it. And the video will explain to you later why that's an important thing. So here are the vowels. A. La letra A. That's the only sound it makes. Ever. No A, no no A. Just A. Whenever you see that spelled out with that letter, that is the only sound that can make. A. There is one glaring mistake. Your book is going to tell you in the first chapter, don't drop your jaw. I disagree. Respectfully. Person who wrote that might have a PhD. I don't know. But that really, no. When you watch people, people do drop their jaw. It's a very open sound. Repitan, That's the only sound that can make. La letra, E. E is the only sound that letter can make. E. A comes from way back in your throat. E. You kind of smile and freeze it. E. No such thing as a silent E. English is littered with silent E's. stare, care, dare. There is no such thing as a silent E in Spanish. If you see it, you must say it. Our next vowel, E. E is not this. E. That's the only sound that letter can make. E. Okay. Here is the only sound this letter can make. O. 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 It is not, notice, O. It's kind of like long O in English, but it's cut. It's cut much shorter. O. O. Okay. O. And here's the last vowel, vocal. O. 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 More rounded with your lips. O. Okay. Once in a while, I'm going to tell you, once in a while, this U is actually silent once in a while, but not all the time. Okay. Usually it'll be O. O. Okay. So las vocales. These are the letters. These are the sounds that are actually the most crucial to get right. The most crucial. If you pronounce the vowels properly, your chances of somebody else understanding the word you said dramatically better. If you start to inject English sounds like a, your chances of being understood go way down. So these are the most important sounds for you to get right. A, E, I, O, U. Okay. Make sense so far? A, E, I, O, U. And do look at, I'm going to send you the long video because it's going to be a 19-minute video. Do watch it because when you watch her mouth, make sure you're doing that with your mouth, what you see her doing. A, E, I, O, U. What you see spelled out is what you pronounce. Okay. And I'm just going to take you through with our last few minutes, a little, not a stroll leisurely, but a brief run through the rest of the alphabet. We'll talk about these in a later class. Consonantes, consonants. A lot of these are going to be like what you expect in English. A lot. The things that are not in black are a little bit different. Okay. So I'm going to signal very briefly some things that the video will tell you in greater detail when you listen to that video later in the week. B y B. Sometimes these are called B grande, B, big B, B chica, little b. And they're called different things. But these two sounds are exactly the same in Spanish. Exactly the same. B y B sound exactly the same. And they are never the English V. B y B will sound like a B. A B. But it will be a much softer sound B. B, 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 B. And we'll talk about it later, but this is just to give you an overview because when you hear people saying that you will hear these sounds come out. So B y B, just be forewarned, B y B, they make exactly the same sound. Little kids taking a spelling lesson in Mexico City, 8-year-olds, get words with B and V wrong. This is what they get check marked wrong because there is no sound difference between B y B. Okay. So, but it has less explosive sound element than English B. Okay. Let's look at the ones in red. These have unique sounds that are not like the English letters. Okay. And people get automatically, they want to focus on this R thing, the trilling the R, which is important to know, but maybe may take a while to learn. So we're going to kind of leave that on the back burner, the R, the trilling your R thing. The video will talk about that a little bit, but we're going to focus on some other things very briefly. Las letras rojas, the red letters, las letras rojas tienen sonidos distintos a los sonidos en inglés. The red letters have sounds that are different from what you're accustomed to in English. Okay. H, don't pronounce it ever. It's a silent letter. It's the only truly silent letter. It's silent. If it's a CH combination, it is what you expect. Ch, ch, ch. But if it's just an H by itself, no sound at all. It's spelled, but it's not pronounced. J will not sound like je. J will sound like ha, 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 a throaty H. Ha. Okay. Briefly, the L has many variations, but it is never just le. It is like closer to the sound of a y, a Y in English, just so you know. The Ñ is completely a unique letter, but that people always adapt to super quick. So Ñ sounds like nya and onion. Nya, nya, nya. So an Ñ is not the exact same letter as N. Nya is nya, N-Y, like canyon, onion, bunyan. Okay. Bien. And the R, the trilling, I'm going to leave that for the video. You don't pressure yourself to be to get that right. But notice you already have the double L in me llamo, me llamo. And there is kind of a gradation of how many things are appropriate for the double L. There are in different dialects, different ways to pronounce that. So know that there will be different things considered okay for that double L sound. Okay, so here are the other things I want you to know. S y Z, the S and the Z, they make exactly the same sound. They sound like an S, like you expect. Yay. The letters in blue, the letters you see in blue will sound quite similar to English, but they will be softer, suaves, softer. So low pedal, not explosive, okay? So the D will sound a lot like a TH in many situations, sometimes like a D. The te, the T, no T. If you do this, T, you feel a puff of air. You shouldn't feel the puff of air. That's not a big deal. It's just something to keep in your back pocket. The P, you feel a puff of air in English, but you don't in Spanish. Just keep that in your back pocket, okay? The C and the G are the two unique letters. C gets two different sounds. G gets two different sounds, and it depends on the letter that's after it, but they follow a similar pattern. We'll talk about that another day. But again, a lot will be explained to you in the video with that. So what I want to pronounce with you right now is some of these consonant sounds just to get used to it. So let's take a look. We're going to take like 5 words from each vowel sound and finish up our class with that, so that you know what letters these make, because it's important to get these vowels right away, okay? Repitan, por favor. Please repeat this first sound. Cama. 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 That's how it should sound. Cama. Let's take another one, and this is another word that will have the sounds predominating. Drama. 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 Okay. We're going to take another one. Planta. 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 Another word we're going to use to practice the sound. Abra. 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 And here's a high frequency word that we often need as tourists. Mapa. 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 Always not map, not mappa, mapa. Bien? Okay. We're going to do 5 words that have this sound, and I'll send this whole file to you. The sound. Pelo. Pelo. The parentheses means what that word means. Pelo. And remember, no silent E. So this word is pronounced cable. 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 The next word has an sound in it. Centro. 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 The next word has 2 A's in it. Este. 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 You'll notice sometimes words have more than one definition. Happens in English too. Last word we'll practice with the sound. Breve. 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 And notice that we'll have it, that V in the middle will sound just like the other be. Breve. Breve. It won't be breve. That V sound, like with our teeth on the lower lip in English, that doesn't happen. So it'll be breve. Breve. Okay. Let's practice a few things with the E sound. E, but short, keep it short, cut short. Libre. Libre. Somebody who is free. Libre. Gris. 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 Our next word is sí. 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 Next word is me. The word for my. Me. Me. And pinta. 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 You know, the P makes the same sound, but no puff of air. No. Pinta. It's pinta. 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 Bien. And we'll do, I think just 3 words on the next one. These ones are a little bit easier. Gorro. 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 We're going to go straight across the list here. Fondo. 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 And the negative word, which is the same as in English. No. But instead of no, it's no. 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 We keep it short. Okay. We'll do 3 with our sound. Sound. Azul. 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 Okay. Burro. 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 And let's choose this word here. It's a little bit shorter. Cubre. 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 Okay. Bien. Bien. Good so far? Sí. Bien. Okay. Vale. Son las 11. It's 11. What I'm going to do is at the end of class now, I'm going to send you, I have to type it up real fast. I will send you a little email, a long email, and it will have every link to all the files that we used during the session, every link to the videos I want you to watch during this week. And I think there are 3. Yeah, there are 3. One video is on pronunciation of all those letters. One video is on greeting people. One is on introducing yourself. And it's going to cover similar things. It'll have like a few different things in addition to what we did in class. But it'll cover things that we talked about in class, a lot of them. And so make sure you know your sounds and check out the file I will send you on sounds that the letters make, and that'll coordinate with the long video that will be on pronunciation, because when you see what you spell, you're likely to get it right. So, okay. In lieu of, I'll send you which items you should read first in the book in that email, which chapters, and it'll sound like a lot, but these are actually chapters that go kind of fast because the print is really big in this book. But we want to get you familiar with some of these greetings words, how to introduce yourself. There'll be little exercises in the book once you get it. And if you don't get the book until sometime next week, don't stress out over it. That's not a real biggie, because you'll have enough to do with the videos that I have sent you. And do try at least one episode of that language transfer podcast, because that will help you a lot for getting the patterns of how words link together into a really super simple short sentence. Okay, a lot of those sentences are going to use the word es. It is. Es normal. Es importante. It's important. It's normal. Things like that. Bien? Bien? Okay, perfecto. Si hay alguna pregunta, if you've got some kind of a question, feel free to email back to me later. This week, Friday, I will send you the Zoom link for next week's class. I always send those out on Fridays. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Any other little question before I send you off for the week? ¿Sí o no? ¿Sí? Bien. Okay, Eric, you'll have to take yourself off mute.
Yeah, just real quick. I'm teaching adults to read English, and of course, English is a nightmare. And I'm beginning to, I'm beginning to see I knew about the vowels being a problem. So in Spanish, there's not a separate letter name and a sound. It's just sounds. It's all.
Well, there are separate letter names. Okay. So I'm going to show you super briefly what those would be, but they're not always. For the vowels, it is exactly the sounds they will make. Okay. But let me show you real briefly. Ay, brevemente. Yeah, because you've got a special situation. So we should address that. And actually, Eric, I will send you. Can you guys give me a yes that you can see this? Yes. Yes. Okay. So for the consonant or for the letters, the name for the actual letters are a, e, I, O, U. Those sounds that they make are the same as the name of the letter, but sometimes there's a difference in the name of the letters. So for example, B grande, I'll give you a quick rundown with it. B grande, B como burro, this is called different things. I'm sorry, it is. B chica, little B chica, or B como vaca, V like cow, because the word for cow starts with that letter B. B, I, B. They're really the same. B grande, B chica. Big B, little b, essentially. Se, that's the name of the letter. Che, that is the name of letter. They're, yeah. They make one sound. Che, okay? De, F, G. Okay, is the name of the letter, but that's not always the sound it makes. This does not make any sound, but it has a name. The letter name is H. H. And I will send you a video that will give you the actual names of the letters. That will be important for you. Jota. That's the name of that letter. Jota. Ka. This happens only in words that come from a foreign language into Spanish. It comes from foreign words. Ka. All right. Ele. Elle. M. N. Enye. There's that yeah. Yeah. P. Q. R. R. It's a separate letter, technically. Okay. S. T. Like ka. This one only happens with words that come into Spanish from a foreign language. So some people call this doble B, doble U, B doble. Yeah, okay. They call it different things. It's not a game changer because you hardly ever see this letter. X. This letter is called either, depending on what country you're from, Y or Y. Like Kanye. Ah! Some countries call this Y, some call it Y. Y means Greek I. Don't ask me why, because I don't know why. But Y. And Zeta. Zeta is very common. In the Brits call this letter Z. They do not call it Z, they call it Z. And similarly to that idea of Z, Z-E-D, Zeta, Zeta. So I will send you, you're in a very unique situation. I will send you a separate link for how we call these letters of the alphabet, because you may need that. Okay. Oh, buena pregunta.
Thank
Good
you.
question. De nada. Okay. Otra pregunta. Any other question? And if you come up with 1 minute of the week, type me a quick email. Okay. Está bien. Vale. Okay. The greatest word for okay is, some people, by the way, it's very common to just hear people who speak Spanish say, okay. But vale. Okay. Vale. Muy bien. Okay. Entonces, adiós. Hasta luego. Nos vemos. Cuídense. Take care. Cuídense. Take care. Bien. All good? Hasta luego. Nos vemos. So see you. Nos vemos.